Hi guys, it's Hannah and welcome back to A Game of Fans and Thrones. Now today I'm doing my part 2 of my March wrap up. Now I am aware that I think I said in the beginning of the mid-March wrap up that I read so many books, but then the camera cut out and I didn't get a chance to review the next book. So I'm just going to the figures. I have read a total of 12 books in March, and let me just get my spreadsheet up because I use Compile by G at Book Roast. So in March I read a total of 12 books, which is 5,449 pages, and they were a mix of different genres and ratings, so I wrote those down as well. I'll just grab my bullet journal. Oh, you can tell I'm so prepared. But yeah, we'll get into those. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I rated this 4 stars. It was a little bit confusing going into it, but I think someone commented on the March TBR video saying that it takes a while to get into, but once you do, it is very interesting. But this is a dystopian, end of the world, apocalyptic style book, and we tend to follow 3 different voices, one of which is told in second person. And I'm not going to tell you too much about the characters, but there is a trigger warnings for abusive marriage, death of a child, death of a loved one. But then we also the relationships themselves are very varied, in the sense that we have a threesome, we have a male-female romance, there is bi representation, there's also trans representation in here as well, and in the most beautiful way, it's this woman presents as female. Move on. And it is so nice, and they are accepted. But I give this 4 stars. I did enjoy it. I was very much intrigued, but it didn't really give me the 5-star vibes. I think I was too confused to fully enjoy it, but I will be picking up the sequel eventually, and maybe reading The City We Became, because I think that's her YA book. Then we have the Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. Now, of course, this got 5 stars, and this is the first in a new trilogy following the kids of the Infernal Devices. Would recommend reading the Infernal Devices first, because there is a lot of, excuse me, I'm just need to wipe my nose. There is a lot of character, not info dumpy, but character dumpy, and without the sort of background of the Infernal Devices, you might be a little bit lost as to who is who. But this is obviously set in the, I think it's Edwardian era, I don't know history, but I really do enjoy it. It is your basic plot. A group of teenagers fight demons. Big demon tried to take over the world, but what makes this one so compelling and interesting, in my opinion, is the characters. So we have Anna, who is not specifically said to be lesbian, but she is seen in men's clothing, which was a no-no at the time. She's frequently seen in the company of other women, and she uses that charm to get what she wants from the warlock in this. Is she a warlock? I think she's a warlock. But then we also follow Cordelia, who is a Carstairs, and she is brilliant. And she's in love with James. James is in love with someone else, and I'm not going to tell you too much, but this did make me cry. It's the... do we have Magnus? Yes, we have a bit of Magnus in this as well. Yep. We'll be continuing with the series. I actually have the Fairy Loot Special Edition right here, waiting to be picked for TBR, Game of TBR, when I eventually figure that game out. But yeah, 4 stars for that, 5 stars for that one, sorry. Then I read Lord of the Rings Part 2, which is the Two Towers, and this one also got 4 stars. It was a lot easier to get through than Fellowship of the Ring, and I think that's because we know the characters a lot more. There's a lot less setup. We know the world, we know the characters, we know the basic gist of what's happening, and in this one we get some Gollum and Smeagol. I do really enjoy how Andy Serkis portrayed the split personality of Gollum in the movie, and he did do really well, apparently according to the book as well. Sorry, I think I'm coming down with a cold, or I need to blow my nose. But yeah, so in this one, obviously, it is a sequel, so I'm trying to be vague for spoilers for the first book, but obviously I think everybody's at least heard of the movie or seen the movie and knows a little bit of what happened. But obviously this is when the company the Fellowship of the Ring has split, and we follow Sam and Frodo, who are in one place going to Mordor, and then we follow Pippin and Merry, who are captured by the orcs because they think they have the ring, and then Aragorn, Gimli and Legolas have to rescue Merry and Pippin. And it's a bit of this one I would class more as an adventure story rather than anything else, just set in a fantasy world. And I know they're evil and everything, but I want one of those. Then we have To Sleep in a Safe Stars by Christopher Paolini, which is a chunker. I gave this one 5 stars. It does hit the ground running, and in my opinion, apart from a lull right in the middle, it does keep up that pace. We are introduced to the characters very early on, and it is a story of survival, and it's a story of humanity and what humanity can get away with and why prejudice is wrong. But basically we follow Kira, who is a space biologist. She's a xenobiologist who disturbs an alien relic, which turns out to be a semi-sentient parasitic exoskeleton suit. Well, that's how I'm describing it anyway. And it bonds with Kira to disastrous effects in the start, trigger warnings for death of a loved one and quite graphic death. But then as the story goes on, they learn, both the suit and Kira learn how to communicate in a sense. We do have some lesbian representation in this as well. 2 of the side characters are in a lesbian relationship, and while Kira is grieving for her first love or current love, her fiance, at the beginning of the book, that is explored in a really natural and realistic way. She ends up having a bit of fun with the captain of another ship, and there's no strings attached with it, but they do end up having feelings, and it's beautiful. And I love the ending. It's so beautifully open-ended that if Paolini wanted to write a sequel, he could, and he answered just enough questions to make this ending satisfying for me, but left enough open that if there was a sequel, I would probably pick it up. But then again, Paolini is a my favourite author because of Eragon. So we have that one. Then we have Tower of Dawn, which was another 5-star read, which did surprise me because right up until the end I was getting 4-star vibes, but it got me into feels. There was a scene right near the end where I did sort of get a little bit choked up. I need to sneeze. Oh, bless me. Right, so there was a scene right at the end that I did get choked up at. But this is Chaol and Nesrin's story. It was originally meant to be a novella, which I think is why it's blue when the rest of the UK covers, apart from Assassin's Blade, are white. So I think that's why we have the very glaring obvious colour change in the cover. But this is obviously Cale's recovery story from what happened at the end of Empire of Storms. Well, at least that's the last one I remember. And I was taught to read Empire of Storms, then Tower of Dawn, then Kingdom of Ash, because that's how they were released. But yeah, this is Cale's recovery story of the events there. Nesryn and Cale come to an understanding about their relationship, and it is just a story about healing. While we do touch on some quite important issues within the main series itself, but what is it about relationships that are getting me at the moment? But yeah, I did like this one, and again I'm being vague because it is a continuation of the series, even though I do think that everybody's read it. There's probably some people like me who are holding off because hype books scare me. But yeah, we have that one. Then we have The Switch, which was 4 stars. I wanted the next 2 books aren't on the official TBR, but I read them in March anyway. So we have The Switch by Beth O'Leary. I just wanted something fun, something cute, something fast and fluffy, and this book had it all. I gave it 4 stars. Now the only reason why I gave it 4 stars and not 5 is because I don't think I've read enough contemporary to be fair. So for me, a 3 is average, a 4 is good, and 5 is absolute favourite. Anything less than 3 means I struggled. I think I've only rated one book 2 star, but that's another video for another time. But yeah, we have The Switch by Beth O'Leary. Now this one, there is quite a big trigger warning for cancer death of a loved one through cancer, and cheating. If that is something that would trigger you, would upset you, just be careful going in, because the main character, Lena's sister and Eileen's granddaughter, died from cancer, and that's a big part of this book is Lena coming to terms with her sister's death, as well as some other issues that don't come into play until later on. But in this one, Lena, who is, I think she's 20 or 30, I can't quite remember her age, but she's middle-aged, I would say. She is basically told to take a 2-month holiday from her job after she fluffs a big important meeting, and she ends up going to see her grandmother Eileen, who was feeling stuck in her little sleepy countryside village. I think it's in Yorkshire. So Lena decides for those 2 months to get away from everything, and Eileen sort of suggests this as well, that they are going to swap lives. So Eileen goes to London, to Shoreditch, and Lena goes to, what is it called? I think it is something very cute. Anyway, so Lena goes to the retirement village and ends up making a bit of a nuisance of herself. At first she doesn't really understand the OAPs, whereas Eileen seems to hit it off straight away in London, and they both make very interesting and real and long-lasting contributions to their surroundings, as well as making the decisions that come about at the end of the book. I think I read this from like Sunday night to Monday morning. I did go to sleep, but I read it in two sittings, and it is adorable. I will try and get a copy of The Flat Chair as well, so I'm looking for some contemporaries if anybody has anything to recommend. And then we have the last book of the month, which was also a 5-star, which was Angie Thomas's A Concrete Rose. Now this is the prequel to The Hate U Give, and follows Star's dad Maverick as he becomes a father for the first and second time. Now, I don't think that's a spoiler, because it is meant, because if you've read The Hate U Give, you know who Maverick is and why he is so important in that story, and obviously his backstory is interesting enough to get a prequel, and yes, it is. There was a part in this that I did cry, but again that might be because I just watched the complete finale of Sons of Anarchy as well. And this one got a 5-star, and the only thing I rated it down on was logic on Corpile, and I think that's because I'm in the UK where this is set in the US, and the whole gun culture in the US does confuse me a little bit, because from what I've seen and from what I understand it to be is that you can go and get a gun from anywhere, and it seems to be really easy to get a gun, whereas over here it's a lot harder. You need a license, you've got to do all these background checks, police checks, I think there's a mental health check as well, but so that does confuse me every time I read an American book with guns, but that's the culture or the way things are there. But this is the story of how Maverick or Mav ends up getting into drugs, out of drugs, into drugs, out of drugs. He doesn't use them, but he does sell them, and there's parts in here that make me wish I annotated or highlighted, but I get rid of books if I don't like them, or if I don't think I'll read them again, so but there's parts in here where he's speaking to his boss, the shopkeeper, because Maverick has 2 jobs, one legal, one not so legal, and there's parts in this where the guy is hard on him, but then, because there's a scene, I think it's about halfway through, maybe a little bit, maybe 3/4, where Mav has finally broken down and used drugs for the first or second time, and he goes to his legal job, and the guy's like, right, well, no, you're working this off, blah blah blah. But then they have quite a touching, sorry if I'm gearing on the floor, but they have quite a touching scene where he's like, no, the biggest lie you'll ever be told is that black men don't have emotions, they can't cry, and he just lets Maverick cry it out, which is sweet, and what Mav needed, because that was the turning point for him to finish school, to get his GED and some other qualifications as well, which do help him in the long run. And yep, we understand why 7 is called 7 as well. But yep, that's all the books I read in, well, the last half of them. All the books I read in the second half of March. Let me know if you prefer the split monthly wrap-ups, or if you just prefer me to have it as one big wrap-up with all of the books. For April I'll probably do one big wrap-up and see which one's easier for me. But let me know what you've been reading in the month, what you hope to read next month, and if you want to see more of my lovely face and become part of my corner of the internet, click that subscribe button, and I post videos at Monday and Friday. Mondays are usually vlog videos, but if there's any video in particular that you want me to do, let me know and I'll try my best to get it done. Bye!